Now that you have a basic understanding of the Forest Service Travel Management Rule, it's time to review the initial designation process used by the Forest Service and talk about what needs to be done to move forward and improve the existing designated route systems. The Forest Service uses a 6-step process. Step 1 is to compile an existing travel management direction. Next, they assemble resource and social data. They then use the travel analysis process to identify proposals for change. Once a proposal is developed, their next step is to conduct an environmental analysis under the National Environmental Policy Act, or NEPA. Once the analysis is complete and a decision is made, they publish a Motor Vehicle Use Map, or MVUM. The last step is to implement the designations, monitor the results, and revise the designations as needed. Now we'll spend a little more time on each specific step. In Step 1, the agency describes travel management planning in 3 ways. First, travel may be restricted to designated roads, trails, and areas. Second, areas may be open to cross-country travel. Or third, areas are closed to motorized use. Step 2 requires assembling resource and social data. But what is resource and social data? It is existing maps of system roads and system trails. New maps if additional inventory is done to display user-created routes. Historic and cultural resources reports. Threatened and endangered species data. Soil and water quality reports. Safety issues. User needs assessments, and conflict assessments. National forests may use one of 3 approaches to identify user-created routes. They may choose to do no inventory. They may do a partial inventory of known routes, or they may attempt to do a complete inventory. The purpose of collecting resource and social data is to evaluate routes for possible designation. To keep the workload to a minimum, the Forest Service determined that no new resource or social data will be gathered unless they believe new information is critical to the decision-making process. The third step of the process is to go through an evaluation or analysis process for any proposed changes. This would include analysis system design considerations, including the recreation experience, environmental concerns, operational issues, evaluation of potential routes, and the identification of possible mitigation. Another part of Step 3 is to evaluate motorized mixed use on roads. As part of that analysis, they need to consider questions like, is use consistent with state and local laws? Does motorized mixed use currently occur? Is there a history of accidents and enforcement problems associated with motorized mixed use? This analysis requires application of engineering judgment by a qualified engineer. When looking at the relationship of state law with proposals for riding opportunities, you need to understand that the Forest Service has the authority to make designations that conflict with state law on National Forest System roads. However, they usually won't exercise that authority. When evaluating proposed routes, they need to review access opportunities across adjacent private land, keeping in mind that designating a route for public use requires acquisition of right-of-way. The Forest Service can designate a route up to a private land boundary, but it's important that they work with private landowners who may be affected by a route proposal over or near their land. One other item that needs to be addressed in the analysis process is the cost. This includes the cost of annual and long-term maintenance, signing, field presence, enforcement, restoration activities, and monitoring. They also need to identify the possible funding sources, which can include agency budgets, volunteers, manufacturers and trade associations, OHV user groups, recreation trails program, state registration programs, local communities, foundations, and other groups. The inclusion of other groups clearly puts the ball in the rider's court, meaning we need to step up to the plate in a big way to make sure that we help with the management of the trail system. Step 4 involves the required analysis under the National Environmental Policy Act, or NEPA. There are several specific steps to a NEPA analysis. For more details, you can review the NOHVCC video segment on the Forest Service planning process. The NEPA steps include issuing an initial scoping notice, accepting and reviewing public comments on scope of project, preparing a draft environmental impact statement or DEIS, receiving and reviewing public comments on DEIS, publishing a final environmental impact statement or FEIS, issuing a record of decision or ROD. While this list may be short, the work required can make the process very long. As riders, we need to understand the process and help the agency work through it. When a decision has been made, the Forest Service will publish a Motor Vehicle Use Map, or MVUM. Publication of a Motor Vehicle Use Map is Step 5, and it completes the designation project. But this is only the beginning of the management process. The Chief, in his initial direction to the agency, identified the problem as unmanaged recreation, not unmapped routes. The publication of the MVUM only maps the routes. At this point, we, as riders, must make sure the agency does not think the process is over. We need to continue to press for management of our system. The MVUM must be available in paper and electronically on the Forest website. The MVUM displays only those roads, trails, and areas that are open. Restrictions and closures will not go into effect until the MVUM is published. It is very important that we understand that if it isn't on the map, it isn't open. In other words, uninventoried routes and all other routes that are not on the map are closed to motorized use. The MVUM is a legal document. The MVUM will be published in black and white. The MVUM will display limited geographic features. Remember, an MVUM that meets the minimum standards will not be user-friendly. The route information will be available to the agency and public to produce user-friendly maps. This is the point where local clubs or organizations can help with the production of a usable map that helps the rider have an enjoyable experience, and may even benefit the club as a potential fundraiser. By getting local support, or selling advertising that would be displayed on the final map, a club could raise money that would not only pay for the printing of the map, but would put some money into the club treasury as well. Signs are not required by the rule, and initially there was a feeling among some folks that signs might not be necessary. However, signs are necessary to assist in interpreting the map. Conversations with enforcement and judicial personnel have demonstrated that on-the-ground enforcement is difficult, if not impossible, without giving the public a reasonable chance to understand the rules and do the right thing. Quality signing can help accomplish that objective. Signing may also be used to focus on the specific route by indicating that it is open and provides access to a specific destination. Most riders will use the identified route even if an additional route is shown on the MVUM. There may also be a need to emphasize that a particular route is closed, and a sign can do this. Signs can also serve as confidence markers. A rider on an unfamiliar trail likes to know they're on the correct trail. An occasional confidence marker lets the rider relax and enjoy the ride.